Hi, Jayanth. Good to see you back, man.
Hi, Leslie. Great to see you, dude.
Yeah. So, how was your weekend? The usual question.
The weekend last week we caught up for lunch at your place. What did I do? I went go-karting, or was it the previous week? I don't know. I don't remember. That means it was dull. That
Surely
means it
not
was
when
dull.
you. I said surely not when you came for lunch.
Yeah.
I would have known. I would have known. Yeah, but I think we were just talking a little about the Mint AI summit that we had just finished.
Right.
So I
Right.
think some very interesting sort of episodes that we had out there. Uh,
Yes.
I mean the speakers were awesome, and I
The
mean both
speakers were awesome. For me, the audience were awesome. Considering this
the
was in
audience.
Delhi. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm extremely engaged audience. Who stayed back late. The content, the panel discussions, the speeches, everything was good this time. Everything came together.
No, I like the part that where you said, that the audience was awesome because seldom do we give credit to the audience. And it also reflects the part that people are very interested in what's happening with the, traditional AI, what's happening with generative AI, the
Right.
kind of, how it's going to impact the way we work, play, and, and our entire life for that
I,
matter of fact. I think it's extremely
I
important.
agree, and that way the agenda and the flow of the summit was, structured so amazingly that it all came together, right? I mean, starting with your overview, and then Rajat from BCG, his overview, specifically speaking on what's happening in enterprise, and then talking about, and then speakers coming and talking about AI 1.0 and then 2.0, and then bringing it together. One enterprise panel and then ending with the CEO panel. It all just came together with the global speakers intersped, with government bureaucrats and speakers from the government side intersped. It was very well,
Yeah, and I'm sure
not
we're
not
going to
just
speak.
organized, but
We're
came out extremely well. Yes.
Correct. And I think we're going to speak about some specific, I think what some specific speakers spoke about.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there are certain things that would have appealed to you much more than they would have appealed to me, and vice versa. But before that, I think a very interesting development that has happened now, and I think our viewers and
Yeah.
listeners would be well cued onto it, is that the New York Times has sued OpenAI for billions.
Yes.
I mean, I think
Yes.
that's they have not been specific about the number, but billions, and obviously means billions of dollars, not rupees. And it's a watershed moment. It's going to be a very defining moment where we are going to talk about AI and copyright. I think
Right.
it's an extremely thing. And one of the themes of the event also was I mean. We had some speakers touch upon this whole thing of plagiarism, copyright infringement,
Correct.
the IP part of it,
Yeah.
and this is a very sensitive issue. If you remember the Authors Guild, it was I think
Yes.
in
Yes.
September. You had the authors of the Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So they had filed a case,
Correct.
and
Correct.
this one I think is going to be very interesting because I think some of the lawyers are very strong in this particular case. Doesn't seem that OpenAI is going to get away lightly.
OpenAI and Microsoft, I don't think they're going to get away. And
No.
this is what they're saying, the first of the many cases to come out. I've had a chance to look at the output of GPT-4 and the New York Times article.
Oh,
They were so close, except for one or two words, apart from each other. And talking about IP again, the UK High Court earlier this week came up with a judgment saying that a patent cannot be issued to an AI algorithm. I think that also is again a huge judgment and a milestone in the way, especially generative AI is being used. And we discussed this a few episodes back on using generative AI for IP creation, okay, as a business model unto itself. This particular judgment from the UK High Court, I think, throws water on that particular business model. But having said that, so many things are up in the air in terms of products, solutions, business models, go-to-market models, IP violations, regulations, and policies. Very interesting times, and the dust
yeah.
hasn't settled.
Yeah, very interesting times, and this is exactly what we were discussing even during the Mint AI Summit. I mean, if you remember, even in the overview, I did speak about this whole thing of this copyright
Right,
infringement. Now,
right.
obviously, if you have trained on everything on that's available on the internet, it's going to give you, it is so many human beings coming together. But the point is, when you're collating that data,
Yeah.
it is, you remember we used to have this joke that when you sort of copy one person's work, uh, that's this thing, plagiarism. But
That's plagiarism.
when you copy many people's work, it's a research.
It's a
Now,
research, exactly.
I mean, of course, that's in a very lighter mood. But if you really look at what a ChatGPT has been doing, or you have to compare it back with how what the performance of search engines, and
Mm.
that is where we were talking. Now, search engines give you, access to the original sources. They give
Sources,
you the
yes.
links, but they cannot access things behind paywalls. What
Exactly.
is happening with NYT? What is happening with Politico? I mean, with Politico, I think they had an agreement, but with some other
Media houses.
media houses, I think with NYT the deal fell through. They did not have the discussion with him.
Yeah.
Probably at that point in time they thought that it was not necessary, and now this is going to land them in big trouble. So I think it's a very defining moment.
And if I'm not wrong, okay, NYT's lawsuit, what was around? Reddit also tried doing something a few months back, trying to. I don't think they filed for a lawsuit, but I think they asked OpenAI to pay up money for using Reddit's
Yes.
data to be trained on, right? Or OpenAI's algo or GPTs to be trained on Reddit's data. It wasn't a lawsuit, but
Yeah, but if you look back, there have been similar cases, even with search engines and all. They've always been asking. I mean,
yeah,
all the media houses, that battle between media houses and with likes of Facebook, Google, and all has always been there. That
right.
pay us for the kind of data. So I think, when you're charging $20 for ChatGPT Plus users, and when you're charging for other kind of services, I don't, because even the outgo would not have been that much if they had this thing. But
Mm,
for me, it is not about a question of whether you're going to pay NYT or you're going to pay media houses or not. The point is, what kind of a society are we? I think there's a biggest question that we're asking. Is it
yes.
okay to plagiarize others' works and reproduce it verbatim? There are established laws. We are clear, like, because as a journalist, I'm so clear as to what constitutes plagiarism, what constitutes copyright violation. We are extremely careful. Even if we quote something, we'll give them sources.
Right.
Multiple times we'll ensure that everybody gets the credit. It is you want to do it because you want to acknowledge the effort that the other person has put in.
Yeah.
Here you find a blatant lift of everything. Almost 100 examples were given there, and I'm sure they have thousands of more examples.
And
Now,
you make a very good point. And this specific, I mean, related to this point is what Debjani Ghosh, the president of NASSCOM, talked about in the Mint AI Summit, where her entire speech was, an appeal to the industry, to the engineers, to the data scientists, to the product managers, to the entrepreneurs, and the CXOs who are working on AI and AI-based products and solutions to develop human centric responsible AI. Okay. And she did bring about this particular point about plagiarism, right? I mean, how will machines, how will you differentiate, and what happens to the artistic and creative outflow of the humans who have created the original content if the machines are trained and use that as a part of their output. Okay. So I think, she was talking about the ethos and ethical AI, but she made a good point there for a good 10, 12, 15 minutes during the summit, and that's all she spoke about.
yeah, and see, if you try to connect with what Debjani said to what Anthropic did, the
Mm,
Anthropic recently said that we are going to pay you for any kind of violation, we'll cover
right.
you for any violation. But that's not
Right.
the point. See, for me, again, it is destroying the very idea of an egalitarian society from a point of view of what's creativity. Again, the
Yes.
same point. So I'm not really concerned about whether OpenAI and Microsoft can pay or not. Obviously, they have that kind of money, they will probably settle this thing. But what kind of society do we want to create with this?
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
are we not comfortable with the idea that somebody is a Leonardo da Vinci, that somebody is an Einstein, that somebody that not everybody can do everybody's work. That is the reason why we put these people on. Here, we are trying to create Einsteins out of every chat GPT user.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
it doesn't help the user, it doesn't help the outcome either. See, look at it philosophically two ways. Now, here is a person who doesn't know how to write.
Mm.
Okay, you are saying, okay, use chat GPT, write a story, and which will and write it in an NYT style. I know of people who have done it. Write it in a style, in a Mint style. Write
Yeah,
it in a
yeah.
whatever style, whether
WSJ style, Financial
whatever.
Times,
Yeah.
economic style. Yes.
Now just think about it. Here's an Indian writer who can't, who does not understand the phrases that unless they have studied in a Western university. They will not understand the phrases. Like, for instance, a simple thing like we seldom say, like, if you have lived in the US, you'll typically say, I can't wrap my head around this. In India, you'll typically say, okay. I just can't understand it. Simple, plain. British English versus US English. I'm just giving the very big differences. But minor differences. Somebody coming from the southern region of India, somebody coming, they don't write the way the others write. You have to respect their style.
Right.
Now you're trying to create, this is like, trying to create a line of coders.
Yeah.
Everybody writes the same language. I don't know what we're trying to achieve out of this.
Well, yeah, exactly. The Anthropic's, point of saying that, okay, we will pay you reminds me of what's happening with the musicians and the music artists and Spotify and iTunes and the other streaming services, right? Um all of a sudden, musicians today, cannot make a living, by just creating music.
Okay.
Even a half a generation back, a good musician was a rock star. Okay, and thanks to these platforms, I mean, what Anthropic said. This is essentially going that way. If you look at it, and it's not good enough to. You can't make a living. Okay, and all of a sudden, a creative person is being brought down to a level where they are literally struggling to fend for themselves through this platform. So clearly we are in extremely disruptive stages of the business models, and new creative all encompassing mutually beneficial business models need to definitely come up, and that's where the next
So, Jeff,
level of innovation is going to come in.
I'm not really perturbed very much about the business models and those kind of things as far as this particular case is concerned, the defining moment, as I say. Because from the copyright point of view, see, when you're talking about an LLM, which is what we spoke about during the Mint AI Summit, also many of the speakers did, you're taking an LLM, you're fine tuning it on your data.
Yeah.
So that's internal data. So you will that thing of copyright violation, the trademark violation, unless you're connecting it with an external LLM, you really don't face much of those problems. Because, like, for
Right.
instance, I know of a lot of banks now that have started using generative AI. They're going to
Yes.
train it on their data, which is why they do not face any regulatory hassles.
Yes.
You have smaller LLMs that have been trained on very few examples. Their output will probably be much more different. It's the big LLMs,
Which are being used as horizontals. Yeah.
exactly, and the horizontals are the point which is that impacts the way society thinks. So
I
I'm not
agree.
worried about the smaller
I agree.
ones.
Yeah.
The bigger ones are going to define. Like, for instance, I was just reflecting on this. Look at music. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000,
2000s.
whichever way you look at it, all have a very distinct genre. That's why you say, okay,
Yeah.
fine, somebody likes, jazz, somebody likes pop, you love metal, I
Yeah.
love, melodious movies. Now, if all were to use something and a chat GPT kind of output or something, we all would have played the same song, we all would have listened, probably never grown, never thought about. So for me, that is the scary part of it. If everybody starts writing like
The
everybody else,
uniqueness, the originality,
uniqueness.
okay,
Yeah.
I hear you. No, definitely.
I enjoy Hemingway. I
Yeah.
enjoy Wordsworth. I enjoy poems by Robert Frost and all. They've got a very different way. But I also enjoy modern poets. I
Yes.
also enjoy modern writing. There are some authors who write in a distinctive style, and that is what stands out. I
Right.
want that. And the
Yeah.
ChatGPT is not going to give me if I'm not going
It
to use
it
it.
is not, because it's going to only regurgitate what's historically been written
Exactly.
and in.
So that, of course, I mean, this is something that our viewers and listeners could probably, think about. So that's why I said I'm not really, for me, the watershed moment is not so much about whether OpenAI and Microsoft will pay or not. I think I'm one thing. I think 99.9%, according to me personally, they will have to pay up. There is
And
no
it's going to
way.
set a precedent. It's going to
It's
set a
going to set a
precedent.
precedent.
It's going to, okay, it's going to have a not just a ripple effect, but a huge effect on the industry dynamics, the profitability, the stock markets, the prices, the stock, everything, the
and it will
business models.
and it
Yeah,
will be, people will be very careful when trying to create these foundation models. They'll either see, I'm not too sure whether the instruction sets can be changed. I'm not sure how the algorithms will have to, because they'll be have to you'll have to have some fundamental changes, because the way algorithms reason, the way deep learning neural networks work, nobody really understands. They are
yeah,
black boxes.
yes,
So I'm not clear about how that is going to happen. I'm sure they'll be thinking about it, and making fundamental changes in the way it crawls the web.
yeah.
And there were some instances. See, I think, instead of having a discussion of that, because the point is that it's a very very broad kind of subject.
Right.
So I would just restrict myself to, or limit myself to saying this, that we really need to rethink why we want these kind of things, whether we want to limit ourselves to somebody else's ideas. I would want a pluralism of ideas, which the search engines were giving me. I
But
could access
it's
everything.
it's the 0.1% to 99% weightage of the world any which ways, Leslie. It's the 0.1% who enjoys, values uniqueness and originality, and the 99.9% of the world is happy to, you know, go ahead with what's good enough. And all these, the current avatar of generative AI engines cater to the majority.
Yeah, but the copyright and trademark violations don't work anyway.
Exactly, exactly,
Whether you're in the 1% or 0.1%, or whether you're in the 90, you'll still get,
exactly.
you are going to be in a real soup, as they say. But anyway, so that's something that our viewers and listeners could also think about, because it's important. I just gave a different point of view, and you gave a different point of view.
And no, I'd actually like to put this out for our listeners and viewers, that we are actually in the midst of some extremely disruptive, and the need for creative and innovative business models and partnership models. And there's a wide space out there. Everything as we know it across industry is getting relooked at and rehauled, and that's where the opportunity for innovation exists for anyone.
And probably we also, I think, as even as users, we should ask ourselves, if I'm not a writer, and do I really want to write like Hemingway? I mean, is it really worth my while wasting my time? Probably I could. I think it's something that a lot of introspection has to be done even by users, probably. But having said that, I think from talking about creativity, talking about innovation, at the Mint AI Summit, I found Amitabh Nag, who is the CEO of
Yeah,
Bhashini, his
yeah,
talk very interesting, because he was talking about something that is, of course, very close to our hearts. We have spoken about this earlier. The
right.
whole rise of India focused LLMs.
Yeah,
Now, I think that's extremely important. Even now, it was very recently that even Reliance has spoken about creating
yeah, yeah,
the GPT. Of
right.
course, I mean, Bharat GPT is also a name that Clover.ai uses. So
Yes.
I think they will have to solve that issue of theirs. But other than that, I mean, the whole idea of creating an India GPT or a Bharat GPT, if you remember, Ashwini Kumar had raised this in
Yeah,
March. Everybody laughed about it, saying that, how are we going to, where are we going to get the GPUs and the power that is required to,
correct,
create a
correct.
foundation model. Then, of course, Altman came in May. you know, we
And
had that
then Jensen Huang
altercation.
came in May, and then Reliance
Jensen,
and Tata both formed a
yeah.
partnership with Nvidia. Yes.
Yeah, but
But if
Altman had that interaction. I'm just
don't
saying
try doing
interaction,
it.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He was with Rajan Anandan, and that became an interesting talking point. And now, of course, now you have the Indus project by the Gurnani, the Tech Mahindra.
Tech
Then,
Mahindra.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you have a host of other ones that. So I think we have at least about 10 India-focused
Sar
LLMs at this point.
Easily.
Sarvam.
Sarva Maya is
AI
Open
for
Hati.
Bharat.
Open Hati.
Open Hati series by
Open
Sarvam
Hati.
AI, and they are
Yeah.
founders with AI for Bharat.
And
In fact, they are collaborating with them and with
Ola announced
that is
their own.
Krutrim.
Yeah,
Krutrim.ai.
Krutrim.
So
Yeah.
Ola did not announce it because what our
Or
friend,
Ola's founder,
yeah,
Bhavesh.
yeah. So Bhavesh Aggarwal insists that this is not an Ola thing. Of course,
Yeah,
I
okay.
will,
So Ola's founder
I,
Bhavesh announces
yeah,
Krutrim.
I will
Okay.
restrict my comments on that because I've written about it. So,
Yeah,
but
so
it's
just for the
interesting.
sake of listing down the India foundational models
There's Vani.
list.
There's Vani
Yeah,
by the Indian Institute of Science, which is held by Google for that matter of fact,
right.
and Art Park. Then Bhashini itself, I
Bhashini
think,
itself.
yeah, Bhashini of course has got this whole thing of Bhashadan, which is the crowdsourcing project
Yeah.
where you can actually, where our viewers and listeners also could participate in Bhashadan. I mean, to translate it as a contribution of your own language to that. So I found that very, very interesting.
Yes, and we've also had a special deep chat with Mr. Amitabh Nag on the sidelines of the
Yes.
conference, specifically for this podcast, and we are going to be playing that as a part of this episode for our viewers. We've had a chance to talk in depth about Bhashini apart from what is spoken at the conference and the summit. Okay, and you know its potential to go, where is it coming from, what are the objectives and the targets and the drivers, and the potential to go global, so we have a special segment with Mr. Amitabh Nag only for our listeners and only for this particular podcast.
Yeah, that would be very, very interesting.
Mr. Nag, it's good to have you on the AI Rising podcast. You know, you are doing a immense amount of work, and especially in India, there's been a talk about building LLMs for India, and India with its diversity, especially language diversity, okay, requires its own foundational models and language models for the billionth Indian, right? In that sense, can you talk about all the work that you're doing about Indic languages, translation, and especially using voice as a interface?
So, Bhashini is a mission to actually translate the 22 Indian languages. The idea is to bridge the language divide and do more. That is, transcend the language barrier, as the mission puts it across. So we are in the mission to do it for 22 constitutional languages to start off with, and then take it forward as per the demands of the market and such.
Right.
Now, the idea, the services actually takes up all the modalities. That means text to text, voice to text, text to speech, and also optical character recognition. And optical character recognition further goes down to handwriting as well as scenic text.
Right.
Scenic text would mean that something which is printed in the billboards,
yes,
you should be in a position to recognize. So ideally, you will not feel that, if language, you are in some other language, other territory, where there is a different language which is spoken, you will still not feel the difference when you are communicating, collaborating, or talking or discussing. So, one of the times which it's going to take away those times when we were told that, if you don't know English,
right,
you are doomed as such. So that's the whole motive. Now, when we use voice, the advantage or the things which we get is that we also perhaps are, bridging the digital divide and as well as the literacy divide. So in some way, if I am able to say that paise bhej do, and the machine is able to ask kitne, and I am able to say 100, and then machine says, okay, authenticate yourself, and the machine is able to send the money. I don't need to learn anything with respect to literacy or digital things.
Digital literacy, and you bring technology closer to the humans and their way of life.
Right.
Yeah.
So starting from the use case, which is very simple, to say that I have a document in one language, I want to translate it.
Yes.
I have a video in one language, I have to translate it.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in one language, I need to translate it.
Right.
Those are the visible use cases which are around.
Correct.
And to a situation where I can do voice-based payments, I can do voice-based reservations.
Right.
People are able to avail government services based on automated form filling on voice-based.
Yeah.
Or multiple other things. Know what their rights are, know what their remedies are. They are in a certain situation, maybe needing legal counsel, maybe you want to know about what schemes they can avail.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe want to know that what is my challenge with respect to the certain things not happening in a right way in the
Right.
Service delivery of government, etc., etc. All those are the use cases which we are trying to attack, so that a common man or the last mile who still is somewhat away from the mainstream system because of the language is able to get into the mainstream system. So it's all about, at the end of the day, inclusivity.
Right.
Although it will find many applications as we go by, and there will be a lot of use cases. And one of the important thing it is actually bringing up is that it is giving use case based development of AI, because
Right.
most of the language models which have been developed are AI based, and we are adding the more AI functionality to actually deliver specific services. So as you talked about LLM and other things, I think most of the activities which we do as far as LLM is concerned is going to be use case based.
Okay.
We cannot just create a model and then figure out what could be the use cases.
Okay.
We need to figure out what is the use case and then try to
Build out the architecture and the framework.
So, what is the problem? What is the use case?
Oh,
Let's
okay.
go. Let's move in that direction. So that's what we are trying to do, and we have built up a platform called National Hub of Language Technology, which renders these AI models as service. We do about 100,000 inferencing a day today.
Okay.
And the system has been tested to scale up to 500,000. And we almost get about sub-second response time in that situation. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that it is an end-to-end platform being able to help these citizens transcend the language barrier, as it calls.
Very interesting, and this might be a little ahead of the curve, but we've seen how the UPI and the other digital public infrastructure that's been developed in India for solving India's problems, scale to population scale, are now witnessing global adoption, right? And we've seen that in the recent G20, how many countries were appreciative about it. I hear it in all my travels. Now, Bhashini also, again, is a similar platform that is being developed in India for India, solving India's problems and population scale. Is there a vision and ambition that, if once this platform is developed and matured, that it can also be deployed globally and, and see a global adoption?
See, there are two parts to this platform. One is the AI models which actually render the services, and other is the platform itself which picks up the AI model and exposes it at AI.
I was talking about the AI models.
APIs, yeah. So currently we are doing 22 language models, right, which do the translation, and there is nothing which the skills are there. There is nothing which stops us from doing more if the mandate is there and if the requirement is there. So that's one part of it. The platform as such, if it is given AI models, it can again scale up. So we actually demonstrated that in G20,
right,
where we integrated the G20 language models from international language models to the Bhashini models, and we were able to seamlessly, translate Indian languages to foreign languages. So the scaling is quite possible. The idea is to actually ensure that we remain open and interoperable, as all DPIs are.
Right.
And see that this is basically being used by as many people as they can.
Okay.
And end result is of course the impact.
Right.
If you are able to create impact, any project would be successful.
Understood. Thanks a lot, sir. Appreciate your time.
Talking about Indic languages foundational models, Leslie and I've been thinking about it all of last week. We spoke about it offline, during our lunch, that the entire AI evolution, okay, could essentially head the splinter net way. If you remember in 2020, okay, there was this concept of splinter net, internet having its own regional versions. I mean, China, there's a global internet led by the West. There's a China's version. There's a Russia and Iran's version. India was supposed to be coming up with its own version. Now, with regional foundational models, AI evolution itself could actually head the way of the splinter net, the way it was, conceptualized about 3 years back during the COVID years. Okay, that never came through, or it never came through. Yes, China has its own
So
internet.
see, I would not use the word splinternet because for me it has a negative connotation. For me, yeah, I mean I would look at the positive because honestly speaking, yes, it does have some touches of geopolitics. Clearly,
Yes,
we
yes,
all know
clearly,
that. Yeah,
clearly.
but having said that, for me, this is more the way the internet is evolving, and the need of the hour is to understand the internet in my own language. Like I remember, if you remember that piece which I wrote, "Are bhai,
हाँ,
मुझे इंटरनेट अपने भाषा में चाहिए." So
हाँ,
I whether I speak it in, whether I want the internet in Tamil, whether I want it in Telugu, whether I want it in Kannada, whether I want it in Hindi or Marathi, Odishi, Bangla, whichever language. So I could speak any language. Understand, we have 22 official languages in
right,
India.
in India.
Yeah, at least have it in 15 to start with, and I'm sure a lot of these, like Bhashini project, I think has already, he spent something like $6 to $7 million on the
Yes,
data
already.
collection,
On
because
the
he
data
said that,
collection, yeah, about $7 million. Yes.
yeah, so that is the issue, and that's why I wouldn't focus so much on the splitternet part of it. I would focus on the enriching part
No,
of it,
I'm not
the
talking about
pluralism
this.
of idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking the evolution of foundational models around the world.
No,
Okay.
fair enough. That's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying that, yeah, for me, it's a richness of the
Yes.
internet. May a thousand flowers bloom, as what Mao would say. So may a
Right.
thousand internets bloom. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And probably, it helps also because, I mean, I want to see a farmer in some thing using it in her own language. It'll be amazing. It will be
Correct.
amazing. And they are doing it. See, I
Yes.
mean, if you remember during the Mint AI Summit, we had Manu Chopra who came over there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I found very interesting, the take home for me, was how he's helping the person who's creating these data sets, whether it's voice, whether this, and they're giving that person a royalty.
Royalty.
A lifelong royalty
Karya.
on the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So I thought Karya's work
I
was
think Karya is
immense.
a great case study. I mean, it's not for no reason that they made it to the cover page of Time magazine. Okay.
Yes.
And I think they're doing a very good job at the grassroots level. Okay. If, having for the last couple of years, having worked with one of the biggest companies in the world, Google, and the government of Tamil Nadu, trying to create something in the healthcare at the grassroots level, I can really, really appreciate what Karya is doing in terms of empowering people on the ground. Okay. And using them right now for data collation, but then in return, giving them confidence, making them including them as a part of a bigger fabric of the evolution of not just the technology but the times as well, right? So that, I think, is Karya is a good case study of keeping up with times, doing the right thing, doing the right thing at the grassroots level, and and distributing wealth and trying to be profitable as well. I think that's a great case study.
Yeah, and I think also the startups, that demoed at the Mint AI Summit. One did it on drones, one did it on how to use, make water, how to purify water using
Purify water.
AI.
Yeah.
So I thought those were, then of course we had Mother Size talk about, fashioning, giving a proper dress size, proper shoe size.
Yes.
And of course the metaverse and the AI, because I keep on insisting that metaverse is not dying and neither is AI killing it, which is
True.
it is silly, to say that every time you find an article, metaverse is dying. I mean, look at digital twins. We're using it like each and every day in and day out.
Correct.
It's metaverse. Meta, of course, for our viewers and listeners who may have forgotten that Meta was formerly Facebook. So the metaverse project clearly is in a sort of deep trouble, probably making losses. This, I think, NYT estimated that it would make something like $50 billion losses or something. That's
Right.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
steep.
imagine they can take a blow like that. So
Yeah, exactly. That's steep. No, okay. Among all of those conversations and speeches and the panels, one thing that for me was very interesting was the entire conversation and the data and the information and the insights around enterprises using generative AI. I mean, one thing, Rajat, I think, came right at the beginning of
that was your panel, right?
That was my panel, but even before that, Rajat from BCG came and
Yes.
provided some data which corroborates with what I am seeing in the industry as well. I mean, so far I've consulted over 40 plus companies for their AI strategy across 15 industries, right? And when it comes to enterprises using AI, Rajat made a good point, and this is also what we are observing. Only 10% of the generative AI pilots across industries, across companies, are actually being launched into production. The other 90% are ending up in sandbox because of how volatile LLMs are right now. So LLMs are still not ready for enterprise usage, mind you. Okay, and that at that point I think was brought out on the enterprise panel where where I was there with 4 other CXOs. But the view from the enterprise's point of view and how they are adopting, using, and taking forward the innovation and the business growth of generative AI was also extremely well captured across 2-3 speeches and panel discussions in the summit. That I found
because I think they are real practitioners. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the proof of the pudding lies in the eating.
And practitioners, and that's where the initial money is going to come in. If you remember the IoT days, essentially at the end of the day, all IoT got structured around where the money was coming from, and then it went ahead for industrial and enterprise IoT use cases and applications, because that's where the business and the revenue started pouring in, and the investments followed there. Okay, so it was very interesting to see the the enterprises adoption and implementation and usage of AI or generative AI, most importantly, at the current stage.
Yeah, and I think every news tidbit that comes out, even whether it is NYT suing OpenAI and Microsoft, whether it was the Samsung case that happened where the code got leaked, or any of these things are, sort of things that are red flags for enterprises. So they have to be extremely careful. So the slow pace at some point in time, sometimes we are critical saying that, why are enterprises not adopting? But that's not true. There are a lot of enterprises that are doing real good work. They have experimented a lot with generative, and I think both of us have spoken about that at length.
I mean, the way I look at it, when it comes to enterprises adopting some of these, cutting edge technologies, is like the parallel that I draw is that, elephant running. It takes time for the elephant to start running and start taking the first few steps. But when it does, within 50 meters, it can catch up, 50 kilometers per hour kind of a speed. Okay. It's a huge, this one, it takes time to start, but once it starts, it can accelerate extremely fast. And the enterprises adopting new technologies, including generative AI, something like that.
Yeah, and they are mature users of classical AI.
Yes.
We completely forget that. Okay, generative AI. I mean, but remember that for the past 6-7 years, everything that you're seeing today, whether you're seeing a seamless transaction that you use on banks, online banking, the mere fact, your search engine recommendations, your smartphone, everything is AI. So sometimes I think people very comfortably forget that the benefits that we're already seeing. Yeah, generative AI will take some time.
That's why it's deep tech. It gets back in the background, does its job, and you don't realize its existence. Yeah. Okay, like electricity.
It is.
Or wireless network, mobile network.
So I think I forget that exact phrase where he said when it actually starts working, then you'll stop calling it AI.
Yes.
So it's attributed to somebody. I'm forgetting a very renowned person. Bad at remembering recalling names at times. But yeah, so and I think what is also interesting before we close this episode, I think this is the last episode of the year.
Of
So
2023, yes.
2023. So it's been a very, very interesting time. So
Very
clearly we have
interesting.
seen this move from classical AI to AI, the India focused kind of AIs. But also we are seeing that as we sort of step into 2024, which we obviously will be speaking about in our coming episodes, how all these shifts are going to wane on 2024 and make life meaningful. But
And also on a personal professional front, Leslie DeMonte, from editor to author to podcaster. Okay.
yeah,
It's been,
I
and
did
all
not
thanks
see
to
that.
AI. All thanks to AI. It's
No,
been a
I
good year.
think
It's been
it
a
just
year
it
filled with
reminds
milestones.
it reminds me of that that quote, Alvin Toffler's quote, which I ended my overview also with, that the illiterate of the 21st century will be
Yes.
those who cannot learn,
Learn, unlearn,
unlearn,
and
and
relearn.
relearn. So I
Yes.
think with that, viewers and listeners, I mean, it's been wonderful having these, podcasts. We have enjoyed each and every episode out
Yes.
here,
And we'll
and
continue.
we,
Yeah, we will see on the other side of the new year as well.
so happy holidays, and hope
Yes.
you folks have a lovely 2024, peaceful, joyful, and you can add all the adjectives that in
Fun
between.
and dynamic.
Fun and dynamic. And then you also have a great 2024.
You too, Leslie. Look forward.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.